Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Sarosh and I'm a foundation level student at Rehan School F Campus, Islamabad. And today I am doing my ChatGPT and my topic is air breathing life into language. So let's start it. Hello ChatGPT, can you listen me?
Yes, absolutely. I can hear you clearly. I'm ready to listen and help you out with your topic on air, breathing life into language. What would you like to discuss or present first?
So ChatGPT, today I have some questions for you. Can we start it?
Of course. Go ahead and ask me your questions, and I'll do my best to give you thoughtful, clear answers. I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, so my first question is that why is air essential for human life?
That's a great question. Air is essential because it provides the oxygen we need to survive. Every cell in our body depends on oxygen to produce energy. Without air, we can't breathe, and our organs just wouldn't function. So it's really the fundamental life support system for us.
So okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that how does air make speech possible?
That's a fascinating question. Air plays a crucial role in enabling speech because the sounds we make depend on the movement of air. When we breathe in, we fill our lungs, and then when we exhale, air passes over our vocal cords and the larynx. This vibration of the vocal cords, modulated by the shape of our mouth, tongue, and lips, produces different sounds. In other words, air is the medium that carries and shapes the vibrations. Without this airflow, we wouldn't be able to articulate words. Furthermore, the pitch and volume of our speech are directly influenced by how much air we push out and how we control that airflow. So, in essence, air is the invisible force that gives voice to our language, allowing us to express emotions, share ideas, and connect with one another. Without air, the very essence of communication would be lost, which is why we can think of air as the life force behind speech.
Okay, so ChatGPT, my next question is that why is breathing connected to communication?
That's a really important connection to understand. Breathing is the foundation of all vocalization. When we breathe, we control the air that passes through our lungs, and that airflow is what sets the vocal cords in motion. Each word we speak is essentially a controlled breath. When we slow down or speed up our breathing, we can change our tone, rhythm, and volume, all key elements of how we communicate. In fact, breath is tied to emotion too. Nervousness, excitement, calm, each of these states affects our breathing pattern, which in turn shapes our speech. So every time we communicate, we are breathing life into our words. By regulating our breath, we find the rhythm, clarity, and power that allow us to express ourselves effectively. In
Okay,
short,
that's a great answer. So ChatGPT, tell me that how do humans produce sound using air?
absolutely. So women, like all humans, produce sound through the same basic mechanism. When we inhale air into our lungs and then exhale, that air passes through the larynx, our voice box. Inside the larynx, we have vocal cords that vibrate as air passes over them. The tension, length, and thickness of these vocal cords shape the pitch of the sound. Women generally have slightly shorter and thinner vocal cords than men, which is why their voices tend to have a higher pitch. After the vocal cords vibrate, the sound resonates in the throat, mouth, and nasal passages, and we shape the fine sound by adjusting the tongue, lips, and teeth.
Okay, so ChatGPT, my next question is that what role does the lungs play in speaking?
That's a great point to explore. The lungs are really the power source for our speech. They provide the steady stream of air that pushes up from the diaphragm and through the vocal cords. Without the lungs generating that airflow, there would be no sustained sound. As we inhale, we gather the energy we need, and as we exhale, we control how much air we push out. By adjusting the force and duration of that airflow, we can create different volumes, pitches, and even pauses in our speech. In a way, the lungs are like a pump that drives all the energy for vocal expression.
Okay, so my next question is that can language exist without teeth?
That's a really interesting idea. In a literal sense, no, language can't exist without breath because speech is an audible manifestation of air passing through our vocal system. However, if we think more broadly, language itself can exist in other forms. Sign languages, for example, rely on hand movements and visual cues, and written language requires no breath at all. So while spoken language is inseparably tied to breath, language as a whole is a broader human capacity that can adapt and thrive without it.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that how did early humans first use vocal sounds?
That's a really fascinating topic. Early humans likely started with simple vocalizations, things like grunts, cries, or emotional sounds. These sounds were probably tied to immediate survival needs, like signaling danger or expressing fear. Over time, these basic sounds became more structured. As groups interacted, they started assigning meanings to different sounds, and those sounds slowly evolved into more complex words. In this way, vocal sounds became a kind of social tool, allowing humans to share knowledge, coordinate, and build community.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that why is why voice unique to every person?
That's a great question. Every person's voice is unique because of a combination of physical and genetic factors. The size and shape of our vocal cords, the length and shape of our vocal tract, and even the way we breathe all come together to create a distinct sound. Beyond biology, our voice also develops as we grow, influenced by how we learn to speak, our habits, and even our emotions. This combination of anatomy and personal development means no two voices are exactly alike. Just like fingerprints, our voices carry a unique personal signature.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that how does air carry sound waves?
That's a great question. Air acts as a medium for sound waves by allowing vibrations to travel. When something like a vocal cord vibrates, it pushes air particles around it. These particles bump into neighboring particles, creating a wave that moves outward. Our ears then pick up these pressure changes, and the brain interprets them as distinct sounds. So, in short, air vibrations create ripples of pressure that we perceive as speech, music, or any sound we hear.
Okay, so my next question is that why is speech considered a powerful human ability?
That's an incredibly important point. Speech is considered a powerful human ability because it allows us to share complex ideas, build relationships, and organize societies. Unlike other forms of communication, speech is dynamic and immediate. It can express emotions, abstract concepts, and even inspire action. It also forms the backbone of education, governance, and culture. Through speech, we pass down knowledge and values, create art, and advocate for change. In this way, speech gives us the ability to shape the world around us, making it one of the most transformative tools we have as humans.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that how did language begin in human history?
That's a really deep question. While we can't know exactly when language began, many scholars believe it emerged gradually. Early humans likely used gestures and simple vocal sounds. Over generations, these vocalizations became more structured, influenced by social needs, like coordinating for hunting or sharing knowledge. As brains grew and communities expanded, so did the complexity of sounds. By linking meaning to specific sounds, humans were able to create symbolic communication, what we now recognize as language.
Okay, good. So my next question is that did early humans communicate before words?
Yes, absolutely. Before words, early humans communicated using a mix of gestures, facial expressions, and even body language. These nonverbal cues were crucial for survival. Think of pointing, miming, or using eye contact to convey danger or direct attention. Over time, these gestures likely became more refined as humans interacted in larger groups. As the need for more complex communication grew, these gestures may have been paired with simple vocal salves, creating a bridge between body language and spoken words. In essence, language evolved from a rich tapestry of both nonverbal communication and early vocalizations. By layering these signals together, early humans could convey more abstract ideas, form social bonds, and begin the long process of creating the languages we have today.
Okay, that's a great answer. So tell me that how did sounds evolve into language and why did humans develop speech instead of only gestures?
That's a really profound question. The evolution of sound into language was a gradual process shaped by both biology and social necessity. Early humans likely began with simple, instinctive sounds, like calls for danger or expressions of emotion. Over time, these sounds became more refined as humans realized that consistent sounds could carry specific meanings. This was driven by the need to coordinate in larger groups, like during hunting, sharing food, or protecting one another.
Okay, so my next question is that how important was breathing control in language evolution?
Breathing control was absolutely vital in language evolution because it provided the steady, rhythmic airflow needed to shape and modulate sound. Early humans didn't just produce random noises, they needed to regulate their breath to create distinct pitches, durations, and volumes. By learning to control exhalation, humans could produce longer, clearer sounds, giving rise to syllables, words, and eventually complex sentences. In fact, breath control gave speakers the stamina to sustain speech, express emotion, and even pause for dramatic effect. As social groups grew and language became more nuanced, precise breath control allowed humans to articulate abstract ideas, form narratives, and pass down cultural knowledge. In short, controlling breath was a fundamental bridge between raw sound and the rich symbolic language that defines human culture.
Okay, so my next question is that did singing come before spoken language?
That's a really interesting idea, and many researchers think that early humans did use singing or melodic vocalizations before structured speech. Singing likely emerged as a form of emotional expression, helping people bond, soothe one another, or coordinate during tasks. These early vocalizations were probably more musical, rhythmic, and tied to repetition. Over time, as humans needed to convey more complex ideas, these melodic sounds evolved into structured speech. This gradual transition from song to speech may have helped early humans reinforce social ties, remember patterns, and eventually form the rich vocabulary and syntax we use today. So, singing might have been a kind of bridge, a universal language that gave way to the more precise and abstract language we now rely on.
Okay, so my next question is that how did tribal communication shape language?
That's a really key point. Tribal communication played a massive role in shaping language because it was the lifeline of early communities. In small tribes, language was a tool for survival. It allowed people to coordinate hunting, share knowledge about plants or terrain, and transmit cultural stories. These tribes needed a shared set of signals, so language became a way to pass down traditions, values, and spiritual beliefs. Over generations, as these groups interacted, traded, and sometimes merged, their languages grew richer. New words were invented, sounds were shaped by shared practice, and grammar structures adapted to fit the needs of that group. In a sense, language in tribal settings was a living bridge, binding individuals to their shared past, guiding their future, and creating a sense of identity that could be passed from one generation to the next.
Okay, so tell me that what role did storytelling play in early societies?
Storytelling played a crucial role in early societies because it was one of the main ways knowledge was preserved and passed on. Before writing, stories were a memory device, teaching about hunting, moral lessons, or natural phenomena. They kept history alive, ensuring each generation understood their past and their place in the world. Storytelling also built community. It was a shared experience that connected people emotionally, fostering empathy and a sense of belonging. Over time, stories evolved into myths, religious narratives, and even legal codes, giving structure and shared meaning to early societies. In this way, storytelling was a bridge, connecting past, present, and future, shaping both cultural identity and collective memory.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that why are some languages tonal?
That's a great question. Some languages are considered tonal because the pitch or tone in which a word is spoken changes its meaning. In these languages, a single syllable can have multiple meanings depending on its tone. For example, in Mandarin Chinese, the same syllable ma can mean mother, hemp, horse, or even a question depending on the tone. This tonal aspect likely evolved because it increases the efficiency of the sound system, allowing more words to be packed into a small set of sounds. In fact, tonal languages often arise in dense linguistic environments because they allow a limited number of syllables to be used flexibly. This makes them incredibly
Okay,
efficient.
so my next question is that how did air-based sounds become symbol of meaning?
That's a really fascinating process. Initially, air based sounds were probably random vocalizations tied to emotion or immediate needs, like a cry for help or a call for food. Over time, certain sounds began to be repeated in particular contexts, and groups started to agree on what those sounds represented. The human brain is especially adept at forming associations, so when a sound consistently coincided with an object or action, like a buh sound for a bird, people began to link them. Through repeated practice, these vocal signals took on specific meanings. As certain sounds proved useful for distinguishing concepts, they were kept, refined, and passed down. Eventually, these sounds evolved into words, small units of meaning. Once people realized that sound could represent abstract ideas, language blossomed as a powerful symbolic system, allowing us to convey not just things we see, but also concepts, time, and even imagined realities. In short, air based sounds evolved into symbols because humans needed a flexible, efficient way to encode and share meaning.
Okay, so ChatGPT, my next question is that why does emotion change our voice?
That's a really profound question. Emotion changes our voice because it directly affects our breathing patterns, muscle tension, and even how we shape sounds. When we feel excitement, fear, or sadness, our body responds by altering the airflow. Sometimes faster, sometimes more shallow. Our vocal cords tighten or relax, which changes pitch, volume, and tone. For example, when we're nervous, our voice might become shaky because we breathe more shallowly, or it might rise in pitch as our muscles tense. When we're calm, our breathing stabilizes and our voice becomes smoother. In this way, emotion is intertwined with how we produce sound. It's a biological bridge. Our feelings shape the air we push out, and that in turn shapes how others perceive us, allowing our voice to carry the richness of our inner world.
So my next question is that how does breathing affect confidence while speaking?
That's a great question. Breathing has a huge impact on confidence because controlled, steady breathing helps regulate our voice. When we breathe deeply and steadily, it calms our body, reduces nervousness, and gives us better control over our pitch and volume. When we're short of breath or speaking quickly, our voice can shake, and we may rush our words, making us seem uncertain. By contrast, slow, deep breathing creates a sense of calm, allowing us to pause between thoughts, speak clearly, and project confidence. In fact, many public speakers train themselves to breathe from diaphragm to maintain a steady, strong voice. So, by mastering our breath, we not only calm our nerves, but we also signal to others that we're in control, boosting both clarity and confidence in our speech.
Okay, so my next question is that how does singing use controlled airflow?
That's a fantastic question. Singing really relies on controlled airflow because it gives singers the ability to sustain notes, adjust pitch, and create dynamics. When we sing, we take a deep breath and release air in a steady, controlled way from the diaphragm. This airflow lets us keep the vocal cords vibrating smoothly, which is why we can hold a note or sing with consistent volume. Without that control, the sound would break or crack. Singers also adjust their airflow to create vibrato or to emphasize certain moves, giving songs emotional power. In short, singing is a beautiful interplay between breath control and vocal technique, allowing us to express not just words, but also a full range of feeling and artistry.
Okay, that's a great answer. So tell me that how do actors train breathing for speech?
That's a really important aspect of acting. Actors train breathing for speech by working on diaphragmatic breathing, essentially learning to breathe deeply into their abdomen rather than just their chest. This gives them a steady supply of air, so they can speak more slowly, project their voice, and fill a large space without strain. They also practice controlling their exhalation. So they release air gradually, allowing them to sustain sentences, articulate clearly, and avoid sounding rushed. Often they combine this with vocal warm ups, like breath control exercises, projection drills, and even yoga or meditation, to keep their breath steady and their voice strong. In this way, breathing becomes the foundation of not just vocal power, but also emotional expression and character consistency, allowing them to fully inhabit their roles.
So my next question is that why do people recognize familiar voice instantly and how does laughter involve breath and sound?
That's a great pair of questions. People recognize familiar voices instantly because of the unique combination of tone, pitch, rhythm, and speech patterns. Our brains form a kind of auditory fingerprint, so when we hear a loved one's voice, we immediately recognize it even without seeing them. It's a powerful, fast track connection, tied to memory and emotion.
Okay, so my next question is that why are pauses important in speech?
Pauses are really crucial in speech because they give both the speaker and the listener a moment to breathe and process. When we pause, it creates a natural rhythm, helping emphasize important points and giving weight to what we're saying. Pauses also prevent us from rushing, so we sound more thoughtful, in control, and confident. For listeners, pauses give them time to absorb ideas, anticipate what's coming next, and stay engaged. In short, strategic pauses can transform a speech from a simple stream of words into a powerful, memorable experience.
Okay, so tell me that how does the brain coordinate breathing and speech?
That's a really fascinating process. The brain coordinates breathing and speech through a complex network involving the motor cortex and the brainstem. When we decide to speak, the brain sends signals to the respiratory muscles, especially the diaphragm, to control airflow. As we inhale or exhale, the brain precisely times the bursts of breath with vocal cord vibrations. This coordination happens almost automatically once we learn language. In addition, the brain uses feedback loops from hearing ourselves speak. So when we hear our own voice, the brain adjusts airflow and timing to keep speech consistent. This seamless interplay between breath and speech is why we can talk fluidly, even though it's a complex dance of muscles, timing, and brain control all working together.
Okay, so viewers, this is my chat GPT. Hope so you like it. Meet for the next video. Pakistan Zindabad.